Hello and welcome to CapCityBTC, Sacramento's premier Bitcoin and cryptocurrency group serving Northern California. Enjoy the presentation.
General disclosure statement. This content is for informational and educational purposes only. You should not construe any such information or other material as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. Nothing contained here constitutes a solicitation, recommendation, endorsement, or offer to buy or sell any securities or other financial instruments whatsoever by the author, presenter, or other associated parties for the content being provided. Please do your own due diligence and seek proper counsel. Thank you.
Spencer Yang is our speaker. He is an investor and an advisor of companies in many sectors, including crypto, fintech, and SaaS. He was a VP of growth, revenue, and operations at CoinMarketCap. He managed the teams focused on data, content, and revenue initiatives. He also created products such as Liquidity, Interest, Chat, Headlines, and The Capital. I think all of us are familiar with CoinMarketCap, either just because we wanted to check the price of something or because we wanted to see how a coin was doing, or if it even existed, or if there was an official link for any particular project. Spencer was also the founding partner of Capital, a quantitative trading firm for cryptocurrency assets with unique software solutions. CoinMarketCap acquired Capital in 2019. And if you're not already familiar, CoinMarketCap was later acquired by Binance. So those are two acquisitions, which I'm really interested to hear about. Everybody give it up, even if you're muted, for Spencer Yang.
Yay!
Yay!
It's a quiet applause.
Thanks for the introduction.
Yeah. So
it's nice to be here. Do you want me to do a self-intro as well, Gibran?
Yeah. So I guess to start off, it'd be awesome if we could get a little bit of your backstory, a little bit more in depth and not so generalized like I just did. And maybe get into a little bit about the story of what brought you into this industry through Capital, and how at a high level you navigated Capital and then CoinMarketCap and then the acquisition. And along that process, we'll be answering some questions, and I'm sure the folks here will have some questions for you.
Sounds good. Yeah. So let me just kind of maybe start from the top where I started in the industry. So before entering the crypto industry, I was a founder based in San Francisco, building an AI company. And then we found actually a lot of customers based out of Asia. So my team and I moved to Singapore, moved to Asia to sort of focus on the Asian market. And then around the time our company was acquired by one of the Indonesian conglomerates. They wanted to essentially take over the company to have, I guess, our existing products and customers as part of their group. So after that, I think that was in 2017, and I was looking around, and I realized at the time that the crypto and blockchain industry was really exploding, just around me. Vitalik was actually working in the office next to me when I was building my company. He was in and out of Singapore and so on, and there was a lot of people hosting meetups and so on. So that was kind of when I moved into the crypto industry. I started out by joining a team based in China, created by the founder of F2 Pool, one of the largest mining pools in the world, to build up a cryptocurrency wallet company. And that was in 2017, 2018, and then we built it out, raised the A round, and then I left to run my own company. I started out with an accelerator of sorts to help companies in the crypto space to grow internationally and so on. And then around the time, I almost by accident, I met a friend of mine who basically was really, really strong in trading, very strong in software as well. And we started Capital together. So that was really the time when we started doing a lot of trading in the cryptocurrency derivative space on BitMEX, OKEX, and other kind of different exchanges. And we built, and because of that, we built a software solution around liquidity, around pricing, and other kind of good stuff. And around the time I met the founder of CoinMarketCap, and he explained to me some of the issues that they're having, and we realized that our products and our I guess our expertise could really help to solve those problems. So that was kind of how we navigated our first acquisition with CoinMarketCap in 2019. And then just kind of just broadly speaking, since joining CoinMarketCap, my team and I have been just very focused on across the entire business unit. So at CoinMarketCap, basically, as you know, we have a lot of content around data, basically the prices of crypto assets from exchanges and whatnot. So we spend a lot of time working on making the information that we show to you guys better. And then we started a lot of work on the qualitative side as well with content. So if you look at the website right now, you will see that we have headlines, we have chat, we have a lot of the qualitative content that could be relevant to users. So we spend a lot of time working on those kind of initiatives as well. And on top of that, I think, as you know, CoinMarketCap provides advertising and provides data APIs. So we also spend a bit of work to make sure that the products on those sides is also improved on. So I think overall, we managed to help the business to become a lot stronger. And then, I think last year in November, Binance and CZ, of course, came to us with the offer for the acquisition. We discussed the details, and then we started the process basically. And then after about 5 to 6 months, we announced it in April this year. And it was pretty an exciting journey, I would say. Pre-acquisition, post-acquisition, and whatnot. And about 2 months to 3 months ago, I've left the company to focus on just spending a bit of time with my family, spending some time on my personal projects, and so on. Yeah.
It's quite a journey, I would say. We have a couple questions already in here, but there were a couple questions going into the chat while you were speaking. Someone asked, how did you get involved in starting this business? You did mention it a little bit, but maybe a little bit more detail in there.
Sure. So for the business, I think, in terms of hashtag capital, the company that I first, I guess, was helped to start, I guess for that company, it was really because we realized that there was a lot of inefficiencies in the cryptocurrency markets. So if you look at, I think back in the day, there was a lot of opportunities for spot arbitrage across exchanges, right? So you can essentially look at mispricing of crypto assets across, let's say, Coinbase, Kraken, Bitstamp, and so on, and then essentially have accounts on various exchanges with API access and so on, and arbitrage the prices across the various exchange venues. But of course, these days you will find that arbitrage opportunity to have disappeared, right? Just because there's so many people who are already doing that, from some of the best trading funds in the world. Today, I think maybe last year, I would say, when I was in 2018, 2019, I think the opportunity in the market at the time, there's a very, very bearish market sentiment. So if you look at, for example, the opportunities for a trading firm when it comes to, for example, buying and selling, in a more directional manner, it's really, really tough, right? So we found that, a market neutral strategy at the time could work. Our alpha was actually really in the fact that we were able to trade the different, futures and derivatives product across the curve, and essentially identify areas of mispricing using some quantitative signals, such as the perpetual funding rate and some of the other signals that we see in the markets. So because of that, we were able to essentially adopt a market neutral trading strategy. But at the same time, we are, of course, at times long and short fall. And other kind of mechanisms. I think that alpha from those kind of strategies are kind of depleted over time, and we saw that I think in June 2019 and so on, that opportunity and that alpha is actually very, very diminished. So in order to capture the same amount of returns, you probably have to then increase the amount of leverage that you're using and so on, and that is actually quite risky from a risk management perspective, because then you have to just make sure that you are holding either more capital in the accounts or just making sure that you have a more robust infrastructure. So in order, I think, for you to keep up with the markets and continue to sort of produce alpha for your investors or yourself, you do have to invest a lot of time and resources into your infrastructure. So that's what we found. And as a result of that, I think we also saw that there were other bigger problems that we could solve with CoinMarketCap, using our products and our software. So that was kind of the path that we chose as a team back then. Yeah.
What was it like? What were the discussions like when you're founding something like Hashtag Capital and it's focused on trading, and CoinMarketCap is this very popular platform for information and I guess pricing data. What were those conversations like, and what were like the points where you felt like, oh, okay, there's something here, and there's like a really good fit?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think first and foremost, in terms of vision alignment between the two parties, I think in my case, I think the founder of CoinMarketCap and I, we met actually through 6 degrees of connection fairly randomly in 2017. And I think over time we've been just kind of catching up on a quarterly basis, and just myself being a founder in the space, just constantly updating people around me on what I'm working on. So I found it to be actually really useful. So if you're a founder and you're starting something, I would highly recommend that you set up a mailing list of sorts and just keep people around you that you're connected to, whether it's in the industry or outside of the industry, updated on what you're working on. So that was one of those things I did, and I think as a result of that, the founder of CoinMarketCap always kind of had a view on what we were working on since the beginning. And then sometime towards the end of 2018 that he had I guess the company and himself had a lot of issues with regards to the pricing, as well as some of the fake volumes issues that are plaguing the industry. So I think he reached out to us just to have a chat about the situation and to see if we had any innovative solutions or proposals and things that we're working on that could help them to resolve some of those problems. So that was so we really started with a problem that he had, and at the same time, of course, a certain level of familiarity just because of how updated he was with what we were working on. And then, of course, we started diving deeper into the problem, evaluate, for example, what are some of the competitors working on, what are some of the, for example, community members saying that should be done, and what some of the stakeholders like exchanges, customers, users, and whatnot are kind of sharing in terms of their perspectives. So using that kind of, qualitative and quantitative kind of information set, we were then able to, then work with our own solutions to then figure out, okay, what is the ideal solution out here, right? Then And then after we've done that, we actually, on our end, our team prepared like a proposal of sorts, right? It's almost like a deck of like 20 slides or whatever. We just dumped whatever we thought, we had, or basically what we had at the time, and also what, we thought could be the vision of this solutions could be in there. And then we had a proper, sit down conversation basically, where we detailed out these things. And then it became clear that, the proposal and also like, for example, the liquidity metric that ideas that we had, a lot of the sort of the methodologies and so on was something that would be pretty critical. So that was when we started talks about, okay, let's move to the next step, which is should we work towards an acquisition of sorts, a merger of sorts, whatever, right? And then during that process, I think it's really about alignment of what kind of expectations both teams have, right? Is this what is kind of the number that we have in mind, whether it's the purchase amount or whether it's just the sort of a sign-on bonus or acquisition cost or whatever, right? So there's many variables that you can I guess include into discussion. But I think most importantly really is agree on a high level first. If you agree on the high levels and what it means and so on, then it's a lot easier, I think, to talk about the details and get those sorted out. I think in our case, we were pretty fortunate to get everything sorted out in one of the quickest, I think, deals that I've personally experienced. And it was like, it was wrapped up in about 3 to 4 weeks, basically. Yeah.
Oh, man. Now, I'm going to combine 2 questions here into one. One is, when starting #Capital, did you kind of start it with the intention did you start it with an exit strategy to be acquired by somebody like CoinMarketCap? And the second part to that is, did you know when those discussions were happening that there were problems CoinMarketCap could solve that you could help solve? Were you going into that with that kind of mentality?
Yeah.
And then the second kind of side to that question is, what was your background going into all of this? Somebody asked, like, what schooling wise, computer science wise, how did you go from starting #Capital and then solving these major problems and leading the way on product for CoinMarketCap as well?
Right. Yeah, I think both are really good questions. Let me kind of try to tackle the first one first, and then I'll kind of go into the background a little bit. So I think for the first, I guess the first question is really about, how does the whole process, works in a way, right? Okay, actually, let me talk about the second one first, right? I kind of lost my train of thought a little bit on the first question when you come to that. So the second one, I think, in terms of my background is actually, a lot in the business product side of things. I am technical to the extent I'm able to understand, how things work. But not in the sense that I'm able to contribute very meaningfully to the production code base, right? So I think that's not my background in a sense. So I think from my perspective, just really it's really about building a team, right? So when you're starting a company, I'm sure many of you have done it already, or work for existing companies that are really very, very well structured. I think it's really about identifying the best people around you, or the people that you may not even know yet, to be able to join the team and to contribute meaningfully to the vision of the company. So in our sense, when we started #Capital, I think the vision was really from the beginning to be able to build something, using systematic and also trade and also software to essentially automate trading, in a way. Right? And I think around the time, towards the I guess the middle of 2019, we were actually looking at 3 options. One was to continue our strategy and continue sort of generating returns in the markets, continue allocating more resources. So I think from the beginning, we didn't really, basically to answer the question, we didn't really start out with the intention of having an exit strategy to any company, right? So we didn't really build our company or team with the intention to sell, at all. So that was one of the first options that we definitely had at the time to continue going forward. Like I mentioned, I think we noticed that the amount of, I guess, returns and resources that we have to put in from our end just to to upgrade our infrastructure continuously was increasing, and we found that to be quite a bottleneck for us, of course, right? And then the second option was to actually create a new business group. So we were at the time considering looking into creation of a derivatives exchange. So we actually even prepared that and started talking to a few different stakeholders, investors, and partners and friends who could be keen. So we actually had the intention actually to think about evaluating of creating our own derivatives exchange. It was kind of around the time where FTX kind of started as well. It's kind of interesting from a timing perspective. There were a few exchanges kind of started around the time. I think we ended up not doing that. I think also because our team realized that our natural fit as a team is just not very well suited to run a derivatives exchange at the time, right? Just based on our resources, our interests, and also a lot of just our own capabilities. And then I think the third option at the time was we had conversations, of course, with CoinMarketCap on some of the problems that they had and that we could fit in and so on. So I think in a way it's really the balance of these 3 options. And then in the end, of course, as you know, we chose the third option in this case. And if you ask me to rank these options, I would say they all have their own pros and cons, right? And that's really the reality with most startups today.
Yep. Is there are there any details regarding kind of the terms of the acquisition that you could share with us?
Yeah, so I think in terms of the terms for both acquisitions, our company to CoinMarketCap and also CoinMarketCap to Binance, I wouldn't be able to share any of the details just because this is how acquisitions go, right? Yeah, but I think some of the variables that you always have to think about, right, is basically the purchase amount, right? What is the actual consideration, right? And how much is the actual dollar, in consideration in this? And also, for example, let's say if you were to take on a role in a new company, what is kind of the position you're at, the level you're at, or your responsibilities, right? And is there a sign-on bonus? Is there what is your wage or salary and so on? Is there like a handcuff? Is there some of these earnouts and stuff like that? So these are all the things that you do have to consider. And also is there some converted equity or whatever from your previous equity into your new company equity and so on. So I think these are all the factors, and definitely I think most of these terms, depending on the position of negotiation and whatnot, can lean from being very favorable to very unfavorable, right? So I think it also really depends on how good you are as a company, how steady you are, and how strategic in what you're working on is with the company's initiative. So I would say in general, if there's very, very strong vision alignment, and I think both and both companies kind of need each other, I think that would really help the terms to be a lot more favorable in a sense. Yeah.
As a founder, how do you pick up some of those skills? How do you learn? I mean, as far as I've seen and in my own experience, like being a founder is already trying to do and learn a million things. And then to learn how some of the process works and what the details are and why it should be one way or another can be really tricky. How did you pick up those skills? And then how long did it take for you to feel comfortable that you had an idea of what you were doing?
Yeah. I think really what got me to become a founder in any industry is really just like foolishness and gullibleness, right? Like in a way, I think that I know enough, to figure it out, or I have the skill sets or the team to kind of figure things out as we go along, right? It's almost like I think there's someone, it might be Paul Graham or Sam Altman who said that, like being a founder in a startup is kind of like jumping off a cliff and then trying to build a plane in midair, right? It's kind of what it is, really. You must first have the confidence to jump off the cliff first, right? And then having faith that you will be able to build a plane, right? Essentially, and then be able to fly there after that. So that's kind of what it is, I think, in a way. Like you must then, you just kind of, it's a leap of faith essentially, right? Because I think what happens is that every single day as we, in our case, when we were building our, for example, trading fund, we were building our strategies, building our software, we know more about what we don't know. And then the market moves, the market changes, and then, more players come in, there's more competitors. Then you start to learn more about yourself and also learn about what you're working on. So I think in a way, maybe the biggest block is really just getting started, right? If you have the belief to get started, I think that's probably the most important thing. And then everything else really is just, I think there are a lot of people, for example, let's say San Francisco Bitcoin meetup groups, Starfish, a lot of these meetups that we all attend that have people who have the relevant experience they can draw from, right? So I think this then becomes more specific conversations about, okay, how do I tackle growth, for example? How do I tackle hiring of engineers, or how do I tackle hiring of business folks and so on, right? So I think some of these more technical issues then would present itself to founders, and then we just have to kind of meet them head on and try to seek advice to sort of resolve them along the way. Yeah.
Were there certain people who you were influenced by or who kind of guided you along that made like a bigger impact on you than just doing things on your own?
Yeah, for me, definitely. I think in the crypto industry, there are a few folks that has really helped me along the way, just because I know so little at the beginning, right? One of them, of course, is the founder of F2Pool. So he's based out of China, actually, spending his last, since 2013, one of the earliest miners. I think his perspective is very, had a pretty big impact on me in terms of, how to think about the market and how to think about, the growth of the industry, how to be able to withstand the shocks, right? And knowing when to double down and so on, right? I think to give a very simple anecdote, I think when we started our software solution, our fund, it was in end of 2018, right? Almost at the absolute bottom of the market, when BTC was like $3,500 and so on, and everyone around me was like, "Yeah, crypto is dead," or whatever, right? And I'm sure all of you here who have who were in the industry at the time would kind of be able to attest that it was pretty bleak, right? Most of the crypto Twitter was very, very quiet at the time. So I think it was also during the time, I think some people that I've met, the founder of F2Pool, he kind of gave me some ideas around the time, gave me some thoughts that, hey, this is not it, right? And then I think, of course, the founder of CoinMarketCap was also a pretty big influence on me, just because of the way that he views the industry. Like the other person, he's also been in the industry since the early days, and I think as CoinMarketCap as a product has also kind of served the industry since 2013, right? So in a way, I think both of these kind of personalities really helped me to shape the way I think about the industry and develop a set of ideals that I think is more about empowering the industry and the community to be more to be able to get more information, to be able to essentially really discover and be a part of the crypto revolution. Yeah.
Yeah, and that I think is a good point to kind of go deeper into your time at CoinMarketCap specifically. Making that transition from being a founder to building a company that's a little bit bigger, like coming into it as a VP of growth, revenue, and I'm not sure how many tags you were.
Yeah, it's just too much titles. That's the problem. It's a small company. It's fine.
Yeah. What was it like, kind of making that transition? Like when you're joining a new team and you're not the one who founded it. What's it like, kind of stepping in and saying, okay, now I'm going to take charge here?
Yeah, I think one of the first things that I personally experienced was just moving from a sort of a founder-like position into an employee of sorts, right? I think there's a certain level of ownership that is very different, right? For when you're a founder of a company, it's really like if, for example, you stop working, you do know that essentially if you take your foot off the gas pedal, you know that the company and the car will basically slow down a little bit and quite a lot, right? But when you are, I guess, part of a company, at whether it's a junior level or a senior level, you do know that a company as a machinery is there. And I think really you're there to bring it not from 0 to 1, but from 1 to 100, or maybe 100 to 1,000, right? So I do know at a time that CoinMarketCap is a company that has found product market fit, right? People were using the application and to check prices and whatnot every single day, right? So I think from that perspective, as a company, as a product, it was successful in its own right. So coming in, really, I think it's about adjustment, right? From the 0 to 1, kind of 0 to 100 phase into like, how do we bring this now from 10 to 100 or 100 to 1,000 and so on. So I think that adjustment is quite important, and that's the first thing I'd love to share there. And then the second part is really about just getting to know I guess the new team members, and kind of identifying what are some of everyone's strengths, weaknesses, and how do we work better together as a team, right? And being a new person on the block, you definitely have some challenges your way, just because no one on the other company really know who you are, except for maybe some of the senior management who you have been talking to during the acquisition process, and so on. So I think as part of that, really is a lot about building equity, building social capital. And I think so we were actually a remote company, a globally remote company. So in a globally remote company, it's actually extremely hard to do that, to build social capital, right? Because you can't really grab someone for coffee or have a water cooler conversation or whatever. So it's really about finding the time, being a bit more systematic, being more structured in the way that you approach communications to make sure that everyone's aligned with you and vice versa. So I think in that sense, these are some of the things that we all have to kind of go through if we are joining a new company, just larger in size. And I think the third thing is just really, continue to have the ownership mentality, right? Like how do you continue to own different parts of the business and continue to strive for things, almost like an entrepreneur of sorts, right? So I think that's very important. I think that's something that myself and my team were able to do fairly well. So we all took on fairly senior leadership roles in the company to try to grow the business and try to help the company become better. So I think these are all the things that I think I took away from the experience, at least from hashtag to the CoinMarketCap side of things. Yeah.
It's really cool to hear that it was actually like a global remote team that was building this. I didn't actually know that. Now the assumption is that there are more companies in crypto that are remote teams versus non-crypto companies. San Francisco being kind of the hotspot for teams that are here, and I'm also interested to kind of hear your perspective about some of the other cities around the world that have big hotspots. But in your opinion, is it effective for these crypto projects to be working in remote global teams? And do you think it is better or worse, or what are some of the pros and cons that you've noticed versus having teams that are able to kind of hang out with each other? And as a founder, oftentimes you're dealing with a small team and you're hanging out with them all day, every day, everywhere. What was that kind of culture change like, and did you like it?
That's a very a good question. I think I would say I have mixed feelings. I'm someone I think that enjoys some interactions, face to face. So because of that, I think I definitely struggled at the beginning to get used to the new sort of way of working. But I would say it's kind of like it's almost like a great preparation before COVID, right? Because right now during the COVID situation, everyone's working remotely, right? So I feel like in a way, my team and I, we had like a 1-year head start over the rest of the world in working on this. So that's kind of funny. But yeah, in terms of I think some of the ways that I think I think it's fairly important. It's really just improving the way that written communication is done within a company. So just because everyone is remote, it's really hard for you to give context in person. So I think what I found personally is that if everybody was to write more, to express more, and just give everyone the benefit of the doubt of context, then I think it would really help the communication become smoother. The other thing is that, in a global remote company, I think a lot of people think that everyone can just work from anywhere, right? But I think to be really effective, it's better to cluster teams around, for example, similar time zones. So let's say, for example, if we have a front-end team, of engineers in the Pacific time zone, and then we have a back-end team, for example, let's say the design team in Eastern time zone, and then we have some operational folks, for example, let's say in Asia, and so on. It really helps, I think, speed things up a little bit, just because sometimes during the day or doing their work, people have issues and they want to ping someone. It's just a lot easier to get an instant reply for some of these smaller things, right? We definitely don't want a situation where every single response has to kind of wait a day and then before it gets resolved and so on. So that actually can get pretty frustrating. So I think when we were working on, I guess I guess a remote situation, I'm sure everyone has some experience now with that. It's really helpful, I think, to just communicate more, share more context, and also to try to cluster some of these smaller teams around the same time zone together, even though they're remote. So that really helps to just increase the speed and the efficiency of how things work.
Did you, I mean, what was hiring at any point part of your title? And how do you go about hiring internationally?
Yeah. So I think hiring and management of talent is fairly challenging, right, with any company, just because you have to figure out number one, what is the person able to do, and what is the person's I guess core expertise, right? And interviews is really a very short period of time to figure that out, right? But it's product, whether it's engineering, and so on. And I think for each particular role, there's always best practices to do that. I think what we found to be helpful as well is to add in I guess a not very quantitative kind of measure called essentially hunger, right, into our hiring process, just to understand do we feel like the candidate is hungry to learn? Is the candidate have the candidate shown some growth mentality, growth mindset in his or her career? I think that has really helped, because in a remote environment, everyone has to be fairly independent and fairly self-motivated. So I think that is quite important, and one of the qualities that we do look out for back in the day when we were looking at hiring. So we spent a lot of time actually talking to a lot of candidates, and then I think ultimately it's just really giving some people the trial period as well, right, of a 3 months period of just like figuring it out. And I think during that 3 months is very clear which of the candidates are good, which of the candidates are maybe a little bit not used to the whole like remote situation, and it's really okay, right? Just because I think with the flexibility, I think we definitely want to have candidates who are just able to fit the culture of the company. So we definitely prioritize culture a lot over speed of hiring. In fact, I think we were probably one of the companies who were hiring very slowly and then firing very slowly as well. So maybe not a great thing, if you look at a Silicon Valley model of like hire fast and fire fast.
Yeah, wow, that's really cool. That is kind of uncommon, I think, or at least in some of these new tech companies.
Yeah.
I don't want to ignore some of these questions that are coming in the chat, so I do want to answer some of these. So someone asked, did you start with a business plan in mind or a plan to solve a problem?
Yeah, I think, thanks for the question. I'm not sure who asked the question, but really thanks for that. I think when we started our business, whether it's the founder of CoinMarketCap starting CoinMarketCap or myself starting #Capital, I think what we realized is that just really we definitely saw some problems in the market, and we definitely had a vision of what we want things to be. So it's always helpful to start with I guess a vision of how things are, but also maintaining that level of humility, I think, to change and pivot and to just acknowledge you're wrong, right? When you receive new information. I think that was definitely what I personally did, when I was starting my companies, back in the day. So like definitely start out with a vision or start with a problem that you're looking to solve. But then along the way, as you gather more information, just if you were wrong, just admit that, and then try to figure out the best way to essentially move forward and maybe solve a new problem and so on. Yeah.
Can you share maybe a couple of the challenges at CoinMarketCap that that are really memorable for you? And go into like what happened and why was it challenging? I'm really interested to kind of hear like what was being built that just took a little bit extra like elbow grease to kind of make work.
Yeah, good question. I think the first one is really, the community had a lot of expectations of CoinMarketCap, right? So as a brand, as a site, I think we had a lot of, attention from the various token projects, the various exchanges, and the various just regular users, right, on what they expect, they want to see on the site, just because they use it fairly frequently, daily, hourly, or whatsoever, right, from a frequency perspective. So because of that, I think we had a very loyal base of users. They really wanted us to improve with them as their journey in crypto growth, right? I think Brian earlier at the start of the meetup asked about everyone's levels right? I think we at CoinMarketCap's products serve a very, very wide variety of user experience, right? From the beginners, the pure beginners who literally just heard of Bitcoin, maybe like, for example, an hour ago, to people who have been in the industry and has very, very deep experience for the last 7 to 10 years, right? So I would say because of that, we have we have a lot of expectation from various members of the community, and we had to essentially then basket all of these concerns and expectations into various baskets and figure out how do we prioritize our product offerings and also our resources so that we are able to essentially then address some of those needs and keep the users continuously productive and kind of leveling up in that curve, right? So I think that is one of the major challenges. A lot of external communication, a lot of pressure. So we have to kind of just go with it and be able to expect that we are operating like a public company without being a public company in a way, right? And just because our products are so visible. So that's the first thing. And then I think the second one is really, in terms of products and the more technical side. Just because as a team, we're fairly small. We have about maybe 30 people within the company. We're not like a big company like Coinbase or Binance or whatsoever, where they have maybe 800 to 1,000 people and so on. So because we have a very, very small team, we had to then essentially make sure that, we are finding the projects to work on that, we are best able to tackle with our talent. And also at the same time, try to, find talents to work with us to solve some of the harder problems, right? For example, around pricing, my team and I came in to solve those problems. And then there were other issues that we had to look at, maybe increasing sales or whatsoever, that we had to essentially hire externally. So for example, with our content strategy and our qualitative strategy, we looked quite a lot around the industry at teams or people who have essentially the experience of doing so. And we ended up, I think, building out a team ourselves internally, along with a few experienced hires from some of the other major publications in the industry. So I think that was really some of those things that we encountered, I guess, when it comes to building our products. Just really a lot about finding out the best fit of people and to problems and so on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's a question here via Meetup kind of about competition. Well, it's a pretty simple question. It's asking, I'll summarize, how did you see competition, or like how did you view it? Did you even think about it between CoinMarketCap and some of the alternative platforms that started coming up? To name drop a few, like Messari, or I think they called their product something else, and CoinGecko as well. What did you think about these other products, and how did you kind of structure what you do, or did you change anything based off what they were doing?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think with every company, you will have, especially if you're tackling a very meaningful problem, whether it's an exchange, whether it's a cryptocurrency, whether it's a price tracking site, information service, and so on, you always have competitors just because of like how important the market segment is going to be and how you validate it. So I think in CoinMarketCap's case, we had a lot of competitors, right? I think we had competitors ranging from traditional finance outlets, like Yahoo Finance, Bloomberg, Reuters, or whatever, to crypto native companies like CoinGecko and so on, to even like companies like Coinbase, Cointelegraph, CoinDesk, or media or exchanges who wanted to offer information to Binance, actually, with Binance Info and so on. So I think we were in one of the most competitive sectors of the industry, even though it was not, I guess, the most talked about, right, in terms of from a profitability or just a revenue perspective and so on. So we definitely were in one of the most competitive categories within the industry. I think how we dealt with the competitors really is, when possible, partner. If not possible, we out innovate in terms of products. I think these are the two main things that we did, right? So just side examples. In terms of partnership side of things, we knew from the beginning that there will be many companies who have a very, very strong clout in their own respective sort of area of focus, like Yahoo Finance, Bloomberg, Binance, or Coinbase, that would in a way offer price tracking information for their users. So we partnered with these companies. We partnered with Yahoo Finance. We partnered with Coinbase. Of course, we ended up partnering with Binance as well. So I think in a way we chose to partner with some of the bigger companies as well. With our service, and just that allows us to focus on what we do best, and then allowing them as a business as well to focus on what they do best, right? So I think in a way that mutual beneficial relationship and agreements could work out. So that was one of the strategies that we adopted, but of course at the same time protecting our interests as well, whether it's our data, whether it's our intellectual property, or whether it's our brand and so on. So if you look at Yahoo Finance, for example, all of their cryptocurrency prices come from CoinMarketCap, and they attribute with our logo and whatnot, right? And for Coinbase prices, the ones that are not traded, those are also from CoinMarketCap. So if you look at the other competitors, the crypto native ones, like for example Messari, CoinGecko, and whatnot, those other competitors I think are very, very important to us, just because they are constantly at the realms of like pushing new features, right? And of course, for them, I think they have a slightly, they might have different priorities because of their customer base, right? They might not feel like they want to compete with us on the overall sort of crypto market. They want to compete on maybe let's say the more institutional market, or let's say the more advanced traders, or for example, derivatives as a product like skew.com, right? So these are some of the things that they could all do to essentially try to develop their own niche within the market. And for us, I think it's really important to keep tabs on what people are working on and to figure out, okay, how are they working on some of these things, and what is the adoption rate, what is the kind of the insight that they have to the market and so on, and is this something that we feel is relevant to our users, right? Just because we service such a broad group of users in our strategy. So then I think that helps us to inform our product roadmap on a quarterly or yearly basis a lot better. So I think we do use signals from there. But definitely, I think, let's say if we do feel like we are ahead in terms of what we think are other products within our category, we definitely also don't want to look at a review mirror and kind of like look at what competitors do in order to drive forward, right? So we definitely have to form a pretty decent vision of what the future is, and we do that. We do try to do that. So I think when we look at competitors, really drawing some inspirations where we can, and also figuring out if there's anything that we entirely missed, when they're innovating. Yeah.
I love that answer. That was awesome. There is a question who somebody wants to ask it over audio, so I'm going to let them ask that right now.
All right, Spencer, thanks for the talk. I just want to say I'm since 2013 I've been in the crypto space. In 2017 I lost my hand, so I have a hook for a hand. I don't know if you can see that. But here's my question to you is well, I mean, again, like I said, thanks for your product. Honestly, like I remember going to that site every single day. My question to you is twofold. One is so as an owner of multiple businesses myself, one of the key questions that I always have is, what was your minimal viable product that you, was it just the linking of APIs into the site, or like, how did you perform that feed? Like, I mean, in the back in the day, like that was like the Bible every single day. I went there and I looked at it. My second question is, from your experience in the business world in crypto, like I said, I mean, I have multiple businesses myself, but I'm still waiting to pull the trigger on a crypto business, even though I've been in crypto for a really long time, just because I feel like it's kind of a treacherous space to be in. How much of the business in crypto would you say is, like, percentage-wise, is just a lot of bullshit? That would
both are really good questions. All right, let me try to talk about the second question first, just because of recency, right? Yeah. So the question, I guess, that you asked is about how many percentage of the crypto companies, I guess, are bullshit, and like you're looking at essentially the crypto industry from an entrepreneurial perspective, right? Yeah, I would say honestly, I think with any industry, right, whether it's AI, whether it's VR, whether it's crypto, it's always going to be a certain percentage of companies that you just know are not as serious as the other ones, right? I mean, it's for a variety of reasons. It could be because they want to, they're still figuring it out, right? I do give a lot of projects the benefit of doubt, especially because, as you know, a lot of projects do apply for listings on CoinMarketCap, whether it's exchanges, whether it's projects, right? So we try to give the companies and the founders the benefit of doubt wherever we can, just because we know that startups are hard, right? And you always are figuring it out, and and when you are kind of sharing with a listing service the details of your token or of your project, we all know it's kind of like you wish it's there, complete, perfect information, but you know that you're almost not there, right? So I think in a way we try to give I guess teams the benefit of doubt wherever we can. But if we do identify like fraudulent behavior or whatever, just like false claims, for example, you claim that Satoshi Nakamoto is an advisor and so on, that's just plain false, right? So I think that's going to be something we do look out for. And I think likewise for yourself, when you're starting a company in the space or trying to invest in companies in the space, you should definitely look out for some of these signals. And I think what happens is that due diligence is really important in any industry, especially in crypto. Having some, for example, asking for a recommendation, asking to talk to someone who maybe the founders or the team have worked before with, or just to get a sense of who they are as a team, as a person. But of course, there are anonymous projects that's a little bit more difficult. For that, you then have to probably look at a code base and just really see the quality of the work that the team has, right? So I think there are many ways that you can qualify and filter through some of the things that are a little bit more frothy. And I think it's all in our best interest to do that, right? And I think really I've seen the community be very, I guess, supportive of each other, share ideas and so on. There's a lot of like really good Telegram groups, or there's a lot of like really good Discord channels and so on that you can join. I guess just be a part of that conversation, right? So I think that these are the things that I personally also kind of keep tabs with, whether it's Reddit, whether it's Twitter, whether it's a lot of these Discord and Telegram groups, just to learn more about what people are working on, to see whether there's any meaningful insights over there. Yeah, sorry. Do you mind just repeating the first question again? Yeah.
Yeah, no, so my first question was just like I said, as someone who's been in the crypto space for a really long time, and I've had, I guess you could call them businesses within the crypto space, but there are things where, you know, people want to come on as investors, and I push them away because I just don't want, I realize that, you know, the scale is not there. But the thing about your business that was so great was that, I mean, it was a simple API. I mean, what was the minimal viable product that you came to the table with when you
Yeah.
first designed your you know, when you came to market?
Yeah, great question. So I think, so I was not at CoinMarketCap in the beginning. At the beginning, it's really just one person, the founder of CoinMarketCap, working on the site himself for actually 4 years. So the minimum viable product of CoinMarketCap, as you know, if you look back at the first Bitcoin Talk forum post, it was just really a price tracking site of 6 crypto assets. I think it was BTC, Litecoin, and then maybe like Namecoin and a few other cryptocurrencies. So it's really just 6 cryptocurrencies at a time. Peercoin, yeah. So I think Peercoin is one of them. So that was, these are literally the cryptocurrencies at the time, right? So you really just started out with a vision of like providing more information. I think the view there is that I think the founder of CoinMarketCap thought that, you know, we would see, you know, a lot more cryptocurrencies in the space, you know, I think innovative solutions and whatnot to challenge Bitcoin or to provide alternatives to Bitcoin or to supplement Bitcoin and so on, right? So I think because of that, he started the price tracking service, linking up prices and information from various exchanges, right? So the MVP was really simple, right? And then over time, of course, as you know, right now we have over 2,000, 3,000 crypto assets, over 300 exchanges, over 10 to 20,000 market pairs, right? So the level of complexity definitely grew. And I think when you are designing an MVP, you probably won't be designing it with like 10,000 markets in mind, right? But you would probably be, at a time, I think it was really just designed for maybe about 50 market pairs. And I think over time, as the site scaled, as the amount of exchanges come up, as the amount of crypto assets grew in quantity, then we had to scale out all of these different areas. So then it becomes a lot more of an infrastructure and engineering problem in a lot of these areas. Yeah.
So like in terms of the infrastructure, it's just APIs that connect to the exchanges. Is that's the whole, that's the concept? So
Yeah.
I mean,
So the
because like
concept
there's,
really is that, yeah. Yeah. So
because
the
there was,
concept
well,
really
there
is
was a,
about.
oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go for it.
Well, I
Yeah,
was just
so,
going to say, because there was a time where it was, I know Zoom is annoying. Yeah, there was a time where, you know, where like the price on BTCE would be like extremely different from like, you know, Mount Gox, for instance. And so like, how did you guys work that out? Like what you just did an average, or like what was the process? Like how did you sort that out? Because I mean, even just doing 6 coins, I mean, everybody knows the price of pure coin is 0, but you know, you guys had to actually draw the line for that. So that was kind of probably annoying for you guys. But in terms of, yeah, just like what's the actual underlying infrastructure of that? Because I've always wondered. I mean, that's why I'm on the call, because I admire your, you know, the business model. And you guys were acquired?
yes. Yes, I think in terms of the infrastructure, you know, of course, I won't be able to share the exact architecture, but I think just broadly speaking, you know, all of the exchanges, many of the exchanges do provide APIs for the price and data, whether it's L1 data, whether it's L2 data that includes order books and so on. So I think the core of it really is that we essentially have agreements with exchanges to essentially report and you know, basically store and report and share the data across all of the pairs that they are offering, and in doing so, then aggregating the prices and information onto a service for everyone to use. Right? If you think about it that way, you know, for example, let's say Coinbase would not have any incentive to share data about Kraken, right, and vice versa. So because of that, there exists a middle ground where a service like CoinMarketCap could exist, right? And of course, at the time in 2013, it was not obvious, just because you know, there was so little exchanges in the first place, so little demand. But I think over the last you know, 3 or 4 years, you saw that the demand for people to find out more information about all the different assets just really grew exponentially, right? I think in 2017, 2018, we had over 100 million users on our site. And that was just really the kind of, you know, I guess, an evidence that I think that was a category that a lot of the different competitors missed out on. And of course, being first to market, as David kind of mentioned in the chat, is definitely helpful as well. You know, just so that, you know, we were able to capture a lot of mind share from the community members and so on, right? And become the go-to place for this information. But I don't actually think that we are exactly the first, because there were some other price tracking services, but I think they were just not as thoughtful about it as us. So we were. CoinMarketCap actually was also the one to one of the points that you mentioned about the weighted average components. We were the ones who kind of, in a way, pioneered of sorts the volume weighted average price, you know, across the different exchanges and so on. And of course, that creates its own set of problems, because that does give you know, exchanges and whatnot an incentive because they're ranked based on the volumes back then to essentially inflate their trading volumes and so on. So I think that's almost like a separate discussion. But like, when you introduce quantitative or qualitative metrics to help to provide more information to the community, there will always be, I guess, an incentive to do something about that as well, right? So I think these are some of the things. Yeah, and yeah, to your question, I think in this year, April, CoinMarketCap was acquired by Binance. And yeah, I guess you can read the headlines in the media. But yeah, really, it's a very interesting process to be a part of course. And I think in a way, it's a pretty good exit opportunity for the team as well.
Let's actually get into some of that. I mean, so between the acquisition from #Capital to CoinMarketCap and the acquisition from CoinMarketCap to Binance, what did you kind of observe was different and what was really similar now that you'd gone through one? And what were those discussions like with CZ and the rest of the team? What were they interested in? What was the vision? I mean, and also, why didn't you want to stick around?
Yeah, sure. I'll share what I can share. There are some things I won't be able to share terms and some of the contacts and so on, right? But I think just broadly speaking, the company I think was acquired really. So I think typically there's many reasons for companies to be acquired, right? And in this case, CoinMarketCap was acquired because of the strength of its core business and just also like the brand as well as the kind of traffic that we do have in the industry. So I think from a business perspective, we were profitable. We were entirely bootstrapped as a company. We were profitable, and we're doing fairly well in this space, right? So there was actually no reason for us to consider acquisition at the time, right? So I think that's just kind of the background and the context of of the whole kind of situation, I guess. And then I think the acquisition offer actually came out as a surprise for us as well, right? And of course, having received an offer, of course the first thing you do is consider it, right? So we considered it, I think, against the backdrop of what we thought the common vision of both groups, could be. And I think it became a yes, I guess, after some due consideration on both parties' ends, right? And then once you have kind of agreed on the high-level terms in this case, whatever it is, then it's about the process of getting things to happen, right? And typically it's a lot of like legal work, redlining and all that kind of things to get things across the door, basically. And then I think you do have to do filings as well. And of course, in our case, just because, so for smaller acquisitions, you typically don't have to do any, real filings with regulators and so on. But in our case, we do have to do filings with the FTC, if I'm not wrong, just to make sure that there's no antitrust issues and so on. So this is some of the things I think you do have to look out for, a lot of these bigger acquisitions. And also I think the legal fees is just very, very different, right? From a smaller company of 3 to 4 people to a, company with a very, very strong product, profitable and so on. The kind of legal work that needs to go behind it is just a lot more. I think thankfully we were able to navigate the whole entire process, make it happen, both parties are happy, and then we close out the acquisition. Yeah, I think with regards to the last question, Gibran, why didn't I stay in the company? I definitely stayed in the company for a fairly decent amount of time post-acquisition from April all the way to about August, right? I think in August, I realized at the time that I wanted to take some time off. It's been a pretty long, 3 to 4 years in crypto that I wanted to kind of give myself some time. And COVID also is a very weird kind of situation where you want to spend more time with family just because you are spending so much time at home as well, right? If you're just on the call all the time, it's not very amazing. So that's just really what it is, I guess.
That's completely fair. Just between like the two acquisitions, was there something? Did you feel more prepared, or did you?
I thought I did, but then the second acquisition was just totally different, right? So yeah, in terms of scale and also in terms of like the considerations and the process, and also just level of complexity, just because we are like I think a 30 to 40 people company team going into a much bigger team of like I think close to 1,000 people. So I think the kind of scale that we're talking about between both teams just is so different, right? And I think honestly nothing could have prepared me for that. It's just really like you figure it out with the lawyers and the accountants and whatnot along the way as you go, right? Yeah.
A few more questions that are coming in. Some that were on Meetup and some that were in the chat. But I guess first, can you kind of summarize? I mean, it's only been a couple months, but so since August, and I'm assuming you took some time to kind of just chill and pause. But can you share kind of what you've been up to since and what that's been like?
Sure. Yeah, I think that crypto doesn't give you a time to chill, right? Like I honestly wanted to take a really like nice break of like 1 or 2 months, but DeFi happened, right? And I think DeFi was pretty interesting just from a intellectual perspective, and also from a just like there's so much things to learn, when it comes to that. So I spent a lot of time, I think, just like learning taking it in the whole the DeFi phenomenon about a lot of the different products, try out different products and so on. So I think that was pretty exciting, to be a part of. I think the industry always gives you exciting things to sort of play and experiment on. Start talking to a lot of my friends or folks that are in the space on seeing what are some of the things that could be done, could be innovated on. So I think these are some of the things that I've been spending a lot of time on. And then of course, at the same time, just looking beyond the crypto industry from an angel perspective, I think I spent quite a bit of time in proptech, just evaluating companies, end up investing in one, and then spend a bit of time learning about D2C as well, whether it's about building up a new brand and so on. So I think these are all the things that I was able to do and had this time and space to be able to explore over the past 2 or 3 months. Pretty grateful for that.
Are there, I mean, so just like the previous things you've done, were there people who kind of helped you understand how to, I mean, essentially as a new angel investor, as an emerging angel investor, what were some of kind of the hurdles or I mean, I'm assuming you're still getting through like how to do it. Do you have any advice and what did you kind of do?
I think for me, I learned that again, talking to people who have some level of experience is really helpful, right? So one of my partners of Hashtag Capital, he was a fairly prolific angel investor since about 5 or 6 years ago. So he's invested, I think, in about 30 to 40 companies by now, and has, I guess, more data points to be able to see across the companies that he has invested in. So definitely drew a lot on experience in that sense, right? I think really it's about building up I think some of the takeaways there is really about having a determined amount of like capital or having a determined amount of like assets that you are willing to put aside and to invest in a fixed number of companies or whatever, such that you have a decent portfolio, right? And spending the time to really think about what are some of the theses that you have, what are some of the things that you are interested in, what are some of the no's, what is the system that you have in place to do that. I think going in blind is probably not a good idea. I mean, but of course you can, you might get lucky, right? And be able to invest in Airbnb or whatever. But I think in my case, I try to be a little bit more systematic in how I think about things, investing in areas where I spend some time doing more due diligence on the industry as well as the team before I pull the trigger. So I think some of these things definitely do help to do. But honestly, at the end of the day, you never truly know until the teams innovate, until results are shown. Yeah.
Going back in the chat just a little bit, a couple of people asked, where is it? They're asking, oh, here we go. What are you most excited about right now? So if you could share kind of what your thesis is, if you can, and what's really exciting right now, and what are you kind of looking for in the next few years?
Yeah. I think I've always paid a lot of attention, to a few sectors within the crypto industry. One of them, of course, is always the products around derivatives. Right? I think increasingly I find that the derivatives market is becoming more and more regulated. And I think whether it's the CME futures, whether it's back futures, or whether it's some of the other companies that are able to play in the space, I feel like the regulated derivative space is a very exciting space to be spending a bit more time in. Obviously, the cost of I guess running whether it's a DCO, whether it's SCM or whatever, is definitely very high. But I do think that there are a few companies in the world today that will be able to offer those kind of products and services. And of course, within the DeFi space, there is a certain level of regulatory arbitrage, or there's a certain level of experimentation is possible. And I think that is an industry, there's a part of our industry that definitely is pretty is shining pretty bright right now. There's a lot of experimentation going on. I think within a BTC world, really, I think what I'm definitely excited and paying a lot more attention to is just really everything around adoption, right? Whether it's Lightning Network, whether it's new ways of payment, storage, and all these kind of things. I think there's just so much work to be done to bring more people into the industry in a safe and secure manner. So definitely very encouraging to see companies like PayPal, and DBS Bank in Singapore, offering services like that. And I think these are all the things that are pretty awesome in this current year. And so I think for me, I'm just really looking at some of these core themes around DeFi, around derivatives, and also some of these I guess infrastructure kind of layers things, and hoping that this would drive some exciting growth for the industry going forward.
Yeah. Now, so your perspective is pretty unique, right? Because you're both a founder and an investor in crypto, right? So there's actually multiple questions around investors. I'm going to try to lump them together because they're all kind of a little bit different. But to summarize, how would you recommend finding investors or buyers for a growing project? How many pitches do you think you would need to make? How many pitches did you make? And how do you choose who to go with? How do you make those decisions in this industry?
The question is, give me 1 second.
Oh no, the AirPods. The AirPods died on us.
Yeah, Apple's down. Sorry. Let me just switch back to my computer. Yeah. So, Jiba, sorry, I lost you a little bit. Could you just repeat the question?
Oh, good. Yeah. So, in sum, the question is, how do you find the investors? I know you touched on it a little bit earlier about, but I guess for advice, how would you recommend finding these people? How do you help them understand what you're building, and what is that process like? And then how do you choose who's a good fit?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think it's really hard, I think, for any founder or any team or even investors raising their funds to find good investors that's a good fit with them. But I think first, my own personal experience is really just first and foremost starting with people that are familiar with you, right? Because when you're starting a company, you're probably starting something that requires a bit of faith on your own end, right? And whether it's a fund or whether it's a company, that really is the case. So starting people that are familiar with you and your own track record, I think is always a good place to start. Talking, pitching to these people, and sharing with them what you think, it's your vision of the future. I think that's really key. And then once you have those conversations done, you'll probably get a good sense of like where you're lacking. What are some of the hesitation points, or what are some of the things that you feel you have confidence in, but they have no confidence in, right? There's always that mismatch of certain things, right? And also like you might be sizing the market wrongly, or they might think the market is smaller than you actually think. So some of these good feedback points will help you to then, I guess, hone in on your pitch a little bit more and become a lot more specific about what you are sharing in terms of vision. Then that might be the right time to then start getting introductions to people who actually have wanted to back you, or who you might know from for example, X company and so on. Right? I think that second level, I guess, connection is then probably the more testing one, just because you are introduced and it's to them you are a fresh face. So I think in that sense, definitely getting a very strong introduction helps, whether it's from a very reputable founder, or whether it's from a really close friend, or whether it's from someone that has maybe succeeded in exiting a company or working with that specific venture fund or the specific investor for. So that really helps the second degree. And then once you're done with the first and second degree, I think by the time you probably have maybe, I guess, hopefully more than half of your round kind of already done. And then it's just really then about expanding network with them a little bit more to maybe people who are a little bit more neutral. So I think this is one example of a process, and I think everyone in the room here might have a different process when it comes to fundraising. So really, I don't think there's a fixed formula, but it's just really finding some of these little ways and systems to make it work for you and your unique situation.
Yeah. Is there a resource that you would recommend to people to kind of help them understand the space?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think when it comes to fundraising, I know that for example, YC and some of the startup accelerators put out some really good content when it comes to thinking about fundraising. Just because I think there's so many founders that have been there, done that, and also just like really what I found that maybe is something to share is that you can literally cold email and reach out to many founders or companies in the space, just asking for some advice on how they've navigated their fundraising round. And if they find what you're doing interesting, they might even offer to angel invest in your company. So I've actually done it personally before, just reaching out to founders to have a 15 minutes call, just to pick their brain on how they thought about the process, and also just to share a little bit of what I'm working on. And then what I found was that many of them are really, really kind to help in the process. So I think really there is a level of pay forward culture among founders that you can definitely try to leverage on. But of course, don't abuse the time of the founders they're talking to.
So far, this has been fantastic, and we're getting to a point where we're probably going to start wrapping up questions. So if you do have a question, put it in the chat and we'll try to make sure we squeeze it in there. The latest question here in the chat is from Hasib. He says, if you were to build a crypto site for real estate, which niche would you go for?
That's a very specific question. I think.
Sorry, can I just clarify my question?
Yeah.
My question is, you're building a real estate, like basically website is a real estate. So you went with all the coin. Now you have websites where they have like DeFi websites, right? Like what is the niche that we'll go for?
I see. So you're still talking about a crypto sector, right? Not talking about real estate sector.
No, I'm basically like CoinMarketCap is a real estate. Yeah. So that's what I'm talking about. Like, people have built type of NFTs, DeFi. Yeah. My question is, what's the best niche that you would go for?
Got it.
I think would you build that website for XRP army?
I think that's a really good point, right? I think I think the way to think about from a startup perspective really is finding a niche or vertical that you can just own and dominate it, right? I think in this way, what I would say is first, if I were approaching this problem, I would first ask what I'm most interested in. For example, if I have a very strong thesis on NFTs, or let's say institutional products in the crypto space, or maybe just information about, let's say, specific type, maybe DeFi, for example,
adoption, maybe like total value logged and so on. If I have some very, very strong appreciation of some of these, like data points and so on, maybe that's where I start focusing on first, right? I think when you are looking at a niche, you have to probably look at a niche that you feel the current products on the market are underserving the market, right? Or you think that there's some unique insight that you have to that problem space and you are uniquely able to solve it, to address it. So I think I'll definitely encourage you to think about that versus, for example, specifically finding out what those areas are, from other people's perspective. Just because I think no one would be as passionate about you as you about solving those problems in those areas. So, for example, in my case, let's say, for example, if I'm really interested in derivatives, right, I would then think about what are some of the information that is offered that maybe competitors like Skew, like Austerity, Bitcoin community or whatever is not really addressing, that I could definitely show more information about to traders and users and so on, and then try to really develop a core suite of products that will cater to those needs. But then it's also about sizing out what is that customer base, what is that user base going to be, right? Is that going to be substantial? Is that going to be monetizable? Is that going to be able to have you achieve scale? You don't really know those questions unless you start discovering more about the market.
By the way, Hasib is also the inventor of the Bitcoin ATM. So,
oh wow,
yeah. So maybe there's something for you two to talk about later. But I guess to wrap up, I do have a question that's very serious, and I've asked it before. But do you think working in crypto ages you faster than other industries?
Yeah, look at the white hair I have on my head. every white hair is a crypto market flip.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely. I think that's a saying in Asia, in the crypto circles in Asia, China specifically. It's like one day in crypto is like a year in humankind. So I think that definitely holds true in certain ways, just because of how volatile the market is.
Yeah. It's very fast, very, very fast. I think we're good there. Spencer, thank you so much for sharing your story and for answering all of these questions. People have more questions. Where can they reach you? Is your Twitter the best?
Yeah. So my Twitter is @SpencerYang. My Telegram is also @SpencerYang. So if you ping me on both places, drop me a direct message or whatever. Just say that you heard me talk at Starfish, and this event. Definitely we can have a follow-up conversation.
Cool.
And then do you want people to reach out to you when they have a random idea or when they have things going, or do you want things to go through Gibran first to make sure people aren't too crazy, or what? I guess as an angel, what do you want?
Yeah, to be honest, it's not a big deal. I've definitely reached out to Founders Cold before, and I do expect that it's fine. Just really, if you have ideas or something you have in mind, feel free to reach out. Of course, I may not reply to certain requests, for example, Facebook friend requests or whatever. But if you reach out to me on Twitter and Telegram, definitely I'd love to hear from you guys.
Spencer, I just have one last question actually, just before we break up. And I go by Crip Loco on Twitter, so I might reach out to you about some questions. Like I said, I'm trying to figure out whether I want to pull the trigger on a crypto business. I have multiple businesses, but anyway. My question to you is, in terms of the innovation behind pricing schemes for market cap, there's been a lot of criticism about the idea of market cap as, a ratio of total supply versus cost. And I'm wondering if you have like any insights into what innovations are happening in that regard. It's something that I've been looking into recently. I'm just wondering if you have any insights about that.
Yeah, that's a pretty thoughtful question. I think the methodology that CoinMarketCap uses and popularized is the price times circulating supply equals to market cap methodology. There's a certain level of subtlety there, because if you so we wanted to represent, I think, the fair market cap of the tokens that are essentially and coins that are in circulation in the market, right? In order to give people a better picture of what it is that they basically own and possess. But obviously, some people criticize or have alternatives like the total supply, right? So for example, there are certain cryptocurrencies that have a very, very high total supply, maybe let's say an arbitrary number of 1 billion, and then only maybe 1 million of those coins are actually in circulation, right? So if we use price times circulating supply, their market cap might be a lot lower than what they feel is right for their project, right? But the reality is that, the 99% of those tokens, for example, are locked up maybe for certain mechanisms, or maybe in the team's hands, right? So it becomes a little bit of a tricky situation. I think if you look at the CoinMarketCap data today, there is a column under the data that is a self-reported information from the project. So the projects do feel that they have a different methodology, or they have some some better way that they feel the community needs to be aware of, they can actually self-report their circulating supply, and and maybe that provides more information for the users. I really think that when it comes to this particular market cap methodology, there's really no like perfect solution, because every solution will have its like pros and cons. And I think for CoinMarketCap's purposes, we just chose the one that makes the most sense to us, and based on the feedback of the industry and the stakeholders that we have.